Without anything better to do, the moronic social justice freaks at Wizards of the Coast have decided to rename the magic plane of Kaladesh, an Indian-themed steampunk plane, to Avishkar. This is because Kaladesh, originally meant to mean home of tomorrow in Hindi, apparently could also mean black world if pronounced differently. As a result, Avishkar, meaning invention, is the new name of the plane, and this became such as part of an in-world event to avoid a retcon. And much of the magic community is abuzz with discussion of this change that no one asked for, either supporting it because they blindly support any action Wizards takes to make their game more politically correct, or opposing it because, frankly, it is fucking retarded. But it illustrates a larger issue with the game, and that is that no one should give a flying fuck what a Magic the Gathering plane name means in Hindi, or Greek, or Chinese, or any other language. They should stop basing planes on real-world cultures entirely. It's funny to see Magic influencers refer to Kaladesh as a beloved classic set, when in reality it was one of the new sets at the time. Not only new but also very different in concept, and not necessarily in a good way. While the Indian culture theme was somewhat subtle, it hasn't been in other places. Theros and Amonkhet were direct rip-offs of Greek and Egyptian culture, respectively. This sort of thing started with Arabian Nights, to get technical about it, but really it started with original Kamigawa block. It wasn't a bad block, and a Japanese-based block wasn't a bad idea. But when Theros came out, then Tarkir, which was subtly Central Asian, then Amonkhet, it began to become a trend. It continued with Kaldheim, which was a passable set besides all the black people shoehorned into a plane supposedly about Vikings. Kaldheim was the last of these sets that was at least passable. After this, the premises for Magic Worlds started to grow wearisome. We had a set about 1920s New York City, a set about cyberpunk Japan, and so on and so on. At least the previous premises had something to do with magic. We had a set about cowboys and the Wild West, and it was wrought with controversy about whether to include Native Americans at all. Of course, it never occurred to these brain-dead cocksuckers at Wizards of the Coast that perhaps they would not have to worry about cultural portrayals in their game, and whether or not they would be considered offensive if they stopped basing their settings blindly off of real-world places and periods in history. This is very simple, but apparently it is beyond the mental powers of Wizards of the Coast. They would rather pay millions of dollars to Sweet Baby Inc. or whatever Globo Homo Phony corporation they currently have on retainer to tell them why they should be ashamed of being white men. This is where the money you spend on cards is going, assuming you're someone stupid enough to still be buying Magic the Gathering. This is why booster packs are going to be $5.49 soon. It is all going to a bunch of freaks and mentally ill degenerates. That's fine. Those sorts have always been somewhat good at creating art. This is not creativity, though. This is regression and shame. Not to mention, their desperate attempt to not offend anyone has failed, because apparently Avishkar, or Avishkar, as three separate words, means "do you wear a dick" in Albanian, which is pretty goddamn hilarious, and just goes to show the futility of their attempts to sanitize everything. But again, the real issue is the absolute creative bankruptcy that goes into basing all of your settings on overdone tropes and real-world scenarios. For example, New Capenna. It was pitched as another urban plane, a huge city where demonic mafia controlled everything. This could have been visually very cool, but instead, we got Art Deco, taxicabs, and literal traffic lights. And to bring it back to Kaladesh, that Indian steampunk plane, is where this whole issue started, really. This issue of putting modern-looking aesthetics into Magic. Yes, it had cool cards like Walking Ballista, and Magic has always had a huge focus on magical constructs. But it began to make it more acceptable to add in Flying Machine, with the introduction of the vehicle type, and began a slow downhill slide toward dogshit like Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. When Wizards of the Coast finally learns to stop listening to their marketing department full of uncreative roasties who are too busy taking 50 dicks a month to actually understand the player base of the game, then there might be a chance that Magic will be great again. Or maybe Elon Musk will buy it and start pumping out AI-generated sets. That would actually likely be better than the absolute disgusting, insulting slop that Wizards of the Coast plans to shit out this year. The Magic: The Gathering 2025 roadmap reads like demoralization propaganda rather than a sneak peek at the game's future.